work at the same, not the same institution, but on the same campus as Yukiko. And quite a few of us are here today, and the reason is we've started a Kokusai Kyoyo Gakubu, the Department of International Liberal Arts, this past year, and this is our first semester. So what we've been struggling with is, yes, we're going to teach all the content in English, and yes, we know that our students are limited, have limited proficiency. So what do? How do you take a student who has a TOEIC 400, or maybe lower, and help them, help them through the process? What can we do to scaffold, to assist them, to give them the help that they need, the assistance they need, so that they can actually understand what they're reading and be able to interact with that in the classroom environment. And this is a challenge that I've been dealing with. And previous to this, I worked in something called the Global Citizenship Program at Sophia University. And the expectations were the same. And so I've developed some techniques that I think are useful. Hopefully you can use them. Sometimes I'm a policy person, but today I'm a pedagogy person, so we're going to talk about teaching and learning today. So hopefully this will help some of you who are struggling. I think what we do as a scapegoat in these situations is we assign a reading to the students, and they come into class and they say, okay, let's talk about the reading. And we get nothing from the students, right? So what do? As professors, we go back on our known pattern. What's that? Lecture. So we start talking, we have our PowerPoint slides, we go through the whole thing, and we get done and say, okay, let's talk about it, and then we get no reaction. And we wonder why. Well, probably because we have to give the students enough of preparation, time to prepare, so that when they come in, they know what you're going to talk about. They know what the questions are, they know what the discussion is going to be about. So that's what I've been trying to work on, and hopefully you'll benefit from this a little bit. All right, so I'm going to define the pedagogical context. Student-centered learning in higher education. This is something that is not only happening in Japan, it's happening all over the world. Lectures don't work. Lectures don't work. I will repeat that 300 times if I have to. I think we have to get beyond what a lecture is and realize that students need to process information in order for them to retain it. So we have to get out of that paradigm. Implementing student-centered pedagogy, using English as the language of instruction. There are 3 steps to this process. First is the reading with scaffolding, and then the second is what we call academic reactions or article reactions. And the third step is strategy-based group discussions. I want to acknowledge my colleagues who are not here today. Malcolm Doherty worked on this with me, and also Valerie Hansford, and she's in another session simultaneously. She couldn't be in 2 places at the same time. So she's doing something else in another room at the moment, but she's here today, and if you have any questions on her material, you can probably find her and talk to her. So, deconstructing the lecture paradigm. What is student-centered learning? Barantag expressed the change as a move from an instructional paradigm in which universities delivered instruction to transfer knowledge from faculty to students, to a learning paradigm in which universities produce learning through student discovery and construction of knowledge. This goes back to Dewey. Social constructionism as a pedagogy. The students can't learn unless they're constructing the knowledge based on what they know, to what they don't know, and what they've learned. And I think we all, as teachers, we all study that, but when we get in the classroom, we tend to forget it because we like listening to ourselves talk, as I'm doing. The next, it's as opposed to knowledge-centered learning approaches, in which research has revealed that experts have organized their knowledge very differently than novices. So the way that a professor puts together a lecture, the way he understands it, is completely different than the way students are going to process this. And a lot of times there's a disconnect. And McCombs and Whistler state that student-centered learning, learners are treated as co-creators in the learning process, as individuals with ideas and issues that deserve attention and consideration. So I think the first step we have to do is deconstruct what it means to do a lecture, what it means to teach a class. Okay? So once we've done that, how do we do it? Well, we have to realize that students are going to be in their zone of proximal development, and this comes from Vygotsky, and we've all studied it, but do we practice it? So what does it mean? The distance between the actual development as determined by independent problem solving and the level of potential development as determined through problem solving under adult guidance, which is the professor or the parent, or in collaboration with more capable peers. So team teaching, group teaching. And if you can see this, it's kind of small, but in the middle On the outside, we have learners cannot, well, in the middle, we have learners can do unaided. So that's what they know, what they can work with, the level of English content in this case that they can understand and interact with. Then we have the next circle, which is zone of proximal development, learners can do with guidance. And that guidance comes from us, the professors. And then we have the outside ring, learners cannot do. So we have to be here, right? We have to be the +1 pedagogy, that we're challenging the students, we're pushing them to the next level, but we're giving them enough guidance and enough support that they can actually do it. And I think that's what we often lose in the process. Okay, so learners can do with assistance. This is the zone of proximal development, or called the ZPD. And assistance takes the form of scaffolding. And scaffolding, I'm sure we all know what it is, but it's defined as with support given during the learning process, which is tailored to the needs of the student with the intention of helping the student achieve his or her learning goals. Well, that's a very vague definition, but basically what can we do to help the students process what we're trying to teach? Okay, so step 1, scaffolded reading. Now, first of all, students may not understand reading without support. So we give the students a reading, we expect them to read it and come back and be able to discuss it. Well, they may not be able to do that. We cannot assume that students can or will being operative word, do the assigned readings. Students may not be able to discuss content of the readings without explicit instruction. So it's difficult to talk about something, it's difficult to derive questions when the level of understanding is not 100%. Scaffolded questions can ensure students have read the assignment. That's the main thing, one of them. Students understand the reading, and students can discuss the assigned reading. So those are the 3 important steps. So the context of this class, this is something I did in GCP, which is Global Citizenship class. I'm going to pass out the first step, and this was used with my GCP students and also law students. The topic is global hunger. This is a reading assignment. There's 20 or so copies. Please pass them down. If there's any left, just leave them at the end, and I better take one so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, this is an excerpt that I use from a textbook that I teach with this class. It's Goldstein and Peebehouse International Relations. It's a Pearson International edition of this book. The topic of the discussion is world hunger. The topic of the reading is world hunger. Now what I've done, as you see from the questions, is I've used Anderson's revised taxonomy of levels and definitions. And this is something based on Bloom's taxonomy of learning, and it's been revised somewhat to relate more to the educational environment and the higher learning. It was certainly in the early 2000s, it was revised a bit. But the pyramid scheme that remembering comes at the bottom, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. And it's important to note that these taxonomy question stems are really important. I didn't pass one out today, but if you put this in, do a Google search on it, it will send you all to all these websites of elementary schools in the United States who have just lists of question stems, ways to take one of these, the evaluate, and make a question that will make students evaluate what they've read, or create something, or analyze something. So these are very useful. And what I've done in the second column here is create some questions based on the reading, and you'll see that in parentheses after each one, define malnutrition. Well, that's a remembering question. What do they remember? How would you explain the effect of hunger on health? That's understanding. And basically just becoming more difficult through the process until of G, which is can you see a possible solution to the problems associated with the decision for farmers in developing countries to engage in subsistence farming or cash crop farming. So that's creating. So you sort of take the students, hopefully, not every time because it's time consuming, but you can, if you have these stems, if you have this construct, and I keep this on my desk, because every time I go, I'm like, oh, which level is this? I can't remember what the questions are. So I always have this reference on my desk that, okay, I need to do an inference question. What am I going to do? What kind of question do I need? And I always use the cheat sheet. So that's basically the primary reading. That would be the first step. Students have read this, they come in, they've answered these questions. I have the students type the questions. I have the students bring the questions to class, and I collect them and I check them. So the homework has to be turned in. If you don't turn in your homework, you get a 0. All right, so that's step 1. Now, I'm going kind of fast here. Step 2 is what we call independent reading and writing. And this is taking the theme and breaking it down a little bit, or finding something in the news that the students can use to further understand the topic. In this case, we're talking about global hunger. So, this is a reading, you'll see it in 3 parts, something taken off the web, out of the newspaper, about, well, the title being Zanzibar Farmers Plead for Training, Loans, and Seeds, and it's about global hunger. So, in the box on the top, you'll see the assignment. In the textbook, we have read about problems of hunger. In this article, you will read about the situation in Zanzibar, Tanzania. As you read the part of the article provided, please look specifically at. And then, the directions. Write a short summary of the article in 20 to 25 words. So, there's 3 groups of students here, so it's sort of a jigsaw situation as well. But the students read part A, it's quite short. They have to make a summary of 20 to 25 words. Another group of students read part B, and another group of students read part C. It's the same article divided into 3 parts. And that's one way to do it. There's many different ways to do it. But then the students have to write a reaction to the information in the article, which in this case is 100 to 120 words. So that makes the students summarize it and then react to it. What do they think about it? Do they agree, do they disagree with the problem, the issue stated in the article? How do they feel it can be resolved? What feelings do they have when they read this kind of thing? And then they've got something to work from. Then they come to class prepared, they've got something that they can use. Now there's many ways to do this. You can appoint the readings to the students, which is what I did here. I picked the article. But you can have the students self-select. You can tell the students, go to the website, go to the web, and find an article about hunger. Find an article about global hunger and bring it to class. Or go through the steps, summarize it, and then make a reaction to it, bring it to class. That's one way to do it. I often find students get distracted. They find articles that aren't relevant. They bring in things related to golf or something else. Even if I make it explicit what the topic is, sometimes students don't bring in proper stuff. So at the beginning, I think it's better to choose your own articles. And this one's kind of long, so you could split it into 3 pieces. You could also have 4 different articles related to the same topic in different parts of the world, perhaps. The students summarize the articles. Students draft academic reaction to the article, which is that here. Each student presents the summary to the group. So rather than reading it, they take some notes, you give them a little format, main idea, detail, 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 so that they're actually speaking rather than reading when they're presenting to their group. And then discussion evolves from the summary, and that's step 3. So after you've done step 1, the primary reading, the concepts, you do the application, which is step 2, getting to what's happening in the world, getting something from the media, hopefully online. And one thing else I should identify too, and it's actually kind of hard to see here, I highlighted, but it didn't come up very well. If you get something online, you can modify the vocabulary, which is very helpful, because if you read the first line here, to outsiders, these islands off Tanzania's mainland are a posh beach getaway. Well, what does the word posh mean? Is it in the dictionary? Hopefully. But sometimes this is a time-consuming thing, but sometimes I'll put another word in parentheses. In this case, I chose beautiful. You could have chose comfortable. Something that means posh. The students don't have to get out their dictionary and look up the word. They can continue to read. Some simplify the word, give them some sort of synonym. And I've done that throughout here. But look beyond the luxurious. I said rich. Obviously, the choices of words can be numerous. I thought the word luxurious is probably out of their vocabulary, so I added something else. And I do this throughout this one. I didn't do all of them, I just did this as an example. So if you get something online, you have the opportunity to modify it, to simplify it a little bit to meet your students' levels. And that's very helpful as well. If you're cutting something from a newspaper, you don't have the ability to do that. So what I do is I scan the newspapers, I find something I like, and then I look for it online. And I can't always find it, and then I have to work from the newspaper, and sometimes that's necessary. But hopefully, if you can find something online, you can modify it a bit, and it's much easier to work with. All right, step 3, strategy-based small discussions. All right, so this is Valerie's part, so if you have any questions about it. If you set up well, small group discussions can help students, one, think critically about what they're learning, interact with the material, support each other's comprehension, that's a small group word, and apply materials to their own knowledge and learning in other courses. So, small groups allow shy students to feel more comfortable in sharing ideas, as we've all experienced probably in the Japanese context, and group work works very well. And it's easier for the professor. You don't have to talk all the time like I'm doing now. And the strategies can help students understand how to participate more effectively in discussion. Now, Val has created a lot of materials here, and I'll pass them on in a second. But basically, I have 5 minutes. Good. We have 3 to 5 students in a group. 4 is ideal, as we all know. We're sharing an understanding of ideas, not a debate. It can be a debate, and that's one way to frame it, but in this case, it's not. You're going deeper to expand on ideas and opinions, and the emphasis is on active listening. Rather than just sitting silently, you're reacting to what the students are saying. You're saying, oh, really? Oh, I didn't see that. Or, and I've got some printouts to hand out related to that. And you create a norm of using English with each other so that the students are using English in small groups in the classroom. Okay. All right. These are some of Val's techniques. The first one is called ore, and it means opinion, reason, explanation. So let me pass this out. This is something that is kind of a template to help students. Hopefully I have enough. I think I gave you guys too many. Can you give me a few, Howard, so I can pass them back? Hope I have enough for everybody. If not, you'll have to share. Maybe hand a few more back there. Maybe that's enough in the front row. So, to get to the point where they can do this spontaneously, they have all these strategies that they can walk into the classroom and have read the readings and be able to discuss it. You need to give them some strategies. So that's what this ore is. It's opinion, reason, and explanation. It gives a very simple example of how to do this and a sample conversation. And there's something about using it in the writing context as well on the back. So hopefully that's pretty self-explanatory. The next one is called QURF. And QURF means question, echo, react, and follow up. And this is also a discussion strategy that is very helpful. So please take a copy of that. There you go. So again, the example used here is quite simple, but hopefully by giving these simple examples to students at the beginning, you can help them learn how to apply it in an academic setting, and so that's also for your reference. Now, the last thing I'm going to hand out is this is actually how it would be applied in the context of the content that we just read on global hunger. So you'll see underneath there's a discussion here happening, an A, B, or a group discussion happening. And you have, under each line, you've got the strategy being used. Opinion, echo, follow-up, explanation, introducing a related comment or explanation. So that's an example that comes from the readings that we did. This is hopefully what the students will be able to do once you coach them in the strategies based on the other prints that I passed out. By coaching those strategies, by practicing those strategies, students hopefully will be able to employ them in the context of a group discussion. Yes, and on the back, thank you for letting me know that the active listening phrases also on the back are very helpful. Rather than students sitting silent, as they often do, you want them to be interacting, showing interest. Oh, really? Oh, yeah, I see. Well, right, these are all very simple things, but really imperative, I think, when you have group discussions. Because if students are sitting silently, as we've learned from the previous presentation, and what happens at ECO, sometimes the students can be silent. So even if they're not interacting, at least they're saying, "Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I know. I understand." That kind of thing gives the students something to work from. Anyhow, that's kind of my thing here. Let's see. Final thoughts. All 3 of the activities are interconnected. They recycle academic and critical thinking. They can be applied to any content, and they can be leveled to students' needs, and needs to be scaffolded. You can't just expect students to be able to do it, right? And if established as a routine, then more challenging students can slowly be introduced. So we're all doing content-based instruction. How do we do this? And what's happening now is many Japanese professors who've never done this before are being asked to, okay, now you're going to teach your class in English. Oh, what do I do? Hopefully, these are some techniques that will be helpful. Okay, thank you.
All the presenters want